Good morning. This is the Blaze World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And you can also get more information and listen to previous shows on our website, which is behind me, blainsworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Captain Jonathan Brown with the Asheville Police Department for being my guest today. And Jonathan, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So give them a
Uh,
big wave. That's
Blaine, thanks for having me.
well, thank you, Captain Brown. I should mention that Captain Brown has been with the Asheville Police Department for 23 years. So it's interesting. You started when you were like seven. You were like the youngest ever at seven. Wow. And with his career in 2002, he served in various assignments throughout the time. And right now he's commander of the Community Engagement Division. And so, Jonathan, the question I always ask first when I have a guest on is, as a kid, you grew up where?
Well, I grew up in Buncombe County in the Leicester community, if you're not from this area, or the Leicester community, if you are.
Oh, is that, wait, go to that again. That's the difference? So,
Well, that's what I find the difference to be. A lot of folks that are not from here, they will pronounce it Leicester,
right.
but those of us that are native, we always say Leicester.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's the first time I ever heard that. So now I call it Leicester, but now I know. So you grew up as a kid in Leicester. As a kid, did you always know you wanted to be a police officer?
No, I didn't. I grew up in a farming community on a farm, on a working dairy farm. And we grew up blue collar and really had no idea at that point in time that law enforcement would be a career path for me. However, I always had an interest in the how did you do that part of law enforcement. So that was something that intrigued me, the science behind it, DNA forensics, how they could use a small piece of evidence to break a case. So that was always of an interest to me.
As a kid, did you always watch police procedurals and shows?
Uh,
It was
Probably that I watched police shows, cop related shows, was the Dukes of Hazzard.
well, no, and then also I used to love Hill Street Blues. Was that your era as a kid?
It was, but I really never got into that particular show.
Okay, but Dukes of Hazzard. Your story reminds me, Jonathan, of a friend of mine who also grew up on a dairy farm, and the minute he turned 18, he joined the army because he couldn't wait to get out from being, no offense to dairy farmers, but that was a tough life, wasn't it? As a dairy farmer?
It was hard work. It was hard work. We dairied up until I was in the eighth grade, and uh, milk prices changed and weren't what they used to be through the 80s. And we sold the dairy and got into growing horse hay. So my entire high school time into early college was spent growing and baling, square baling horse hay, and we would retail that out to local horse owners and stables and whatnot. So it was tremendously hard work, particularly during the summers.
But even the horse, hey, that business was probably easier in some respects than being a dairy farmer. Because dairy farmer, every day, 365 days, 5 o'clock in the morning, no,
Yes.
there was no break ever. As a
Yeah.
raising the
You,
hay, was there a break?
so yeah, you make a great point there. When you have a dairy, it's up. However, you did catch a break during when we were growing hay. It was first of all, it was seasonal.
Right.
Second of all, once you harvested your crop, you had some downtime.
I think,
But
yeah.
get that same downtime when you were dairying.
Yeah. And like I said, so my buddy couldn't wait to get out from, his father was ready to kill him because he, had the farm for him, but no way did he want to continue. So you then, now, does family still own that hay farm?
Yeah, the farm is still in the family and is still a working farm. We have about 75 beef cattle.
Okay, nice.
Father still works it, and we have pivoted off of square bales into round bales now, primarily just to feed the cattle that are on the farm.
So you worked through high school, you went to college. When did you then decide to enter law enforcement?
So I got out of college and spent a couple of years just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I started meeting different members of the Asheville Police Department, and um, started doing ride-alongs.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
and a ride-along was where I was introduced to um, a patrol shift, answering calls for service, watching the officers go about their workday. And I remember the first ride along, I was so intrigued that number one, I didn't want to leave. And number two, I couldn't wait to come back. So I did. I came back for a second and a third. And within a short amount of time, I was looking at how I could apply and become a full time police officer.
Now, when you went to college, were you a criminal justice major?
I was not. No, I was not a criminal justice major. I was a youth director. I got a degree in youth ministries and came out of that and took a job for about 2.5 years working as a youth director, working with teenagers. And I've joked before, after working with teenagers for a couple of years, I figured out pretty quick that I wasn't going to be able to sustain a lifelong career, and then half of them I wanted to put in jail. So
Well,
uh, it
we're
wanted
laughing, but imagine it's probably a very useful background to be a police officer if you
it
work.
really it has well. First of all, it laid a foundation for me in the professional world. Um, when I went into law enforcement, I knew what it meant to have a boss, and I knew what it meant to get up early and go to the office and have office hours and have a structured day and really have structure to my life. So when I came on with the Asheville Police Department, I felt like I had some gainful professional experiences already under my belt that only helped me as I got into my career.
Now, you mentioned the ride-alongs, and we'll talk about it later perhaps as well. But is this something now that folks can can participate in still, or they have to be part of a program?
So the ride along program is a function of the Asheville Police Department, and it's still open and available to anybody who would like to participate in that. The way a person would get involved with a ride along is to contact the Asheville Police Department and indicate that you are interested in doing a ride along, and they will send basically a waiver, a release waiver to them. They'll sign off on it, and they'll get you scheduled and put you in a car with a police officer.
So you don't have to go through any other program or just participate in that?
You do not have to go through any other program. It's available to the general public.
Well, talk about that a little bit more because what a great idea, I think, for both the police department and the public as well. Because what I understand, and I think I mentioned to you off the air, that I once went through a ride along and I did the police academy, and boy, did that change my image of the police, from a very positive standpoint. I mean, I always had a positive standpoint, but once you see what somebody goes through, even more so. Do a lot of people participate in this?
They do. It's not widely used, but it is used. A lot of times it's folks that are close to law enforcement, either they have family in law enforcement or they have a friend in law enforcement, and they're more familiar with that opportunity. But it's open to everyone, and you're right. Once you get into the vehicle with an officer, you are up close and personal. You get to go on all the calls for service that they respond to throughout their shift. So you see what they see. You get to experience what they experience to a large degree, and it really can shape and form your perception of law enforcement or dispel maybe some myths that you believed prior to getting in the car and participating in the ride along.
Is there an age limit?
There is not. Well, let me back up. I think 16 years old is the youngest on up.
Yeah. But you mentioned something, and what a phenomenal opportunity for a kid. It doesn't have to be a kid, for a kid especially, to see what a job is about. It's almost too bad. I'm thinking, um, uh, Jonathan, that we don't have that in other fields, or it's too bad back in your farm days. It's too bad people couldn't come over to help out or see what being a dairy farmer is. But I guess the problem is, if that was the case, nobody would ever become a dairy farmer. So here. Now, wouldn't it be great though if whatever career we were going to go into, you could actually experience it, through the ride-along program or like that? I think it's great.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I mean, it really gives you again that first hand experience. Some shifts people will finish their ride along and they'll come out of the car and they'll say it was the most exciting thing they've ever
yeah,
been part of. Sometimes they'll come out and say, well, you know what? It was kind of a quiet night and there wasn't a whole lot going on. But you never know. You never know what the day or the night is going to bring. And that's part of, I think, the what attracts us to the job. Number one is not knowing what that next hour is going to look like. So yeah, I mean, it's truly an experience that if you have an interest or curiosity in law enforcement, I encourage people to do it.
can you do more than one ride-along?
You can.
And do people sometimes do more than one?
Yeah, and just due to number one, our staffing has been an issue over the past 4 or 5 years. We do try to monitor frequency just a little
Right.
bit so as not to burn our officers out. If you could imagine um, every day going to your workplace and having a new to you for the duration, it's fun and exciting the first few times, but after it's repeated over and over, officers they do kind of ask for a little bit of a break from time to time. So we kind of watch that, but generally speaking, it's never a problem. We try to work people in as much as we can.
Well, it's funny you say that because in another life I was a teacher, and one of the controversies in being a teacher now is the fact that, hey, they don't want the public involved. Something's wrong by that. You would think, public should be welcome into schools, but every teacher I know, I don't know if you see this, but every teacher I know isn't crazy about having parents, there 24/7,
Right.
So that's interesting that police officers do it, hopefully in open arms. The other thing about the program is that it's interesting that people see it firsthand and their eyes will be open, that no doubt about it. So talk also then about another way of opening eyes, and I was grateful to the Asheville Police Department that I participated in this, but you still have is it annual or you do twice a year, the Citizens Police Academy? How often is that?
We do that twice a year. We do a spring session that starts in March and ends in June, and then we do a fall session that starts in September and ends in November.
Okay. And by the way, so it starts in September. When do people start signing up for it?
We're actually taking applications right now. We have an open application period that'll go through August 21st. Um, so we're in the intake process for this current session that we're trying to fill up. We opened up applications last week and we've had a tremendous response so far. I'm two-thirds of the way there as far as applications go. So I'm thinking that if applications continue to roll in at the rate that they have, I may have to close the applications before August 21st. I can only seat about 28 comfortably in our classroom space. So typically, once we get all the applications in and we onboard the class, there's one or two or three that their schedules may
Right.
change or may come up and they're unable to attend like they initially thought they could. So my intentions are to carry about 30 or 31. And by the time we seat the class, I'll probably be down to 28.
I have to mention to folks if they're listening that this is definitely one of the best experiences I've ever had in Asheville. And intentionally, I signed up for it. I think it was only in Asheville maybe for a year. And what a great way to learn about Asheville, but learn about the police academy. So to your credit, they still do it all these years in two classes. That's quite a program you have. And so what does the program entail? So I go to the website, I can find out information about it.
Easiest way to locate the link for the application is just do a Google search,
Okay.
Asheville Police Department, Citizens Police Academy.
Okay.
It'll pop it up and
And
you can,
so if it pops up, then I get I fill in an application. Do I have to get background check or all that good stuff?
we will do a background check. Yes.
Okay. So if you worry about that, then don't sign up for it. But you
Yeah.
do. The
Probably,
background, yeah.
um, it probably don't want to sign up, but we do a background check. It's a secured facility, and we have regulations inside the building that, um, just in short, we need to know who's in the building and feel comfortable with those that we're given the access to the level of which we are. So that's the primary reason for running a background, and it's we've had folks that have had a little bit of a criminal record in the past, and I still have taken them. I look at them and I try to vet them and use some common sense and see kind of where they're at in life and just make a judgment call when we have to do that on different applicants.
Now, I do this on paper. Is there an interview process or just on based on the form?
No, just based off the form and the other thing that is a determining factor is how many applications I have. So if I have a tremendous amount, which this one's shaping up to, looks like it may be that, then I probably won't spend a whole lot of time on applicants that may not be the fit that we're looking for. Because and let me speak to that just for a second. This is really what we have found to be a two-way relationship. Um, all of our attendees, they get a lot out of it. They all enjoy it. They rave about it. They talk about it. We stay in touch with each other. But for us on the police department side, we found that we form some really valuable relationships with our attendees. We stay in contact with them. I've got an alumni list that I communicate with periodically. So it's a two-way relationship as far as we're concerned, the way we see it.
And if you would then, for the benefit of the people not familiar with the program, because again, as you say, myself included, my producer, Cappy Tassetti, everybody talks about it, raves about it, and tells everybody in the world about it. But what does it entail? So it's how many weeks does it run?
So it's 10 weeks.
Yeah.
It's every Thursday night. And the curriculum starts at 6 p.m. and it ends at 9 p.m. promptly. We bring, if you so choose and want to come and eat with us, we provide a catered meal at 5:30.
Which is very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and we spare no expense. We try to do it first class. So we feed everybody at 5:30. We start right on the dot at 6 o'clock, and we have you out the door at 9.
And it's funny when you mention it, I'm thinking out loud, boy, that's a long time. But those were the quickest 3 hours, I've ever seen. And I've been a college professor. I taught all my life. But boy, every session flew. It's just like I wasn't bored. It wasn't straight lecture. What I loved about it too, there was a lot of interaction. Or you guys, at least when I went, you could ask almost any question you wanted, and there would be an attempt to at least answer. It's still that way.
It is. It is still that way. We have around 30 um, subjects that we offer during the academy, which boils down to around 3 to 4 topics per night. Uh, it feels like for me, because I have to manage the class each Thursday, it feels like we're up against the clock from the start, and we have to be very prompt to get people on in time and off on time to get the next subject up. So what that does is it lends itself to at 9 o'clock when the evening's over. It goes so fast, like you mentioned, because we're cramming so much content in the evening. I've had to tell my instructors to trim your PowerPoints and use really about if I give them an hour, um, come up with about 30 minutes worth of content and leave 20 to 30 minutes for question and answer, because I've found that the classes are that engaged and they really want to be able to ask questions and get answers to things that they're curious about.
And what's incredible is that even if I didn't think I was curious about it, I would become curious listening to the instructor because there were so many things I didn't know, as with the case of most people. Talk, if you would, Jonathan, about some of the kinds of topics that are covered.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we talk about all of our divisions. We have 5 divisions within the Asheville Police Department. It covers community engagement. It covers the patrol division, which is our largest division in the department, and that's our most outward facing division. That's the ones that the public generally sees. They wear the uniforms. They drive the marked cars. They answer the calls when someone calls 911. We hear from our criminal investigations divisions, how detectives work cases, how our forensics personnel analyze evidence, how our victim services deal with victims of crime and support them through their hardship. Um, we have we talk about our drones and our technology that is ever advancing and new technology that is coming on board. It is so rapidly changing how law enforcement conducts business day to day. Um, our administrators, our chief of police, our deputy chiefs, everybody contributes in terms of providing a little bit of insight from their seat and their perspective to the Citizens Police Academy. Our specialty units, our SWAT team, our crisis negotiation team, our bomb team, our bicycle response team, our uh, crowd control team. You hear from all of those commanders and get a chance to see a little bit about what they do. And then we do static displays with all of the equipment. We'll bring all of our vehicles out, and you get to get on the vehicles and take a tour through them. So there's just a lot that we unpack over 10 weeks.
Now, I'd be curious, and you've been doing this now for how many years? You've been involved in it?
23.
No, but you specifically with the Citizens Police Academy, you've done it for,
This is my second year. We resurrected this program after COVID. We had to
okay,
discontinue.
interesting, right? Because I told you, you mentioned to me off the air, it was Alan Dunlap was the guy in charge of it when I went through it,
Yes,
and he was just a great guy and just loved the program. But curious now, so you saw the program over again. How long have you been involved with the program?
2 years.
2 years. So have you seen, other than 2 years or even beforehand, I'd be curious, do any of the graduates become officers? Or have you seen that at all?
I have seen it once.
Very cool. Just as a result of the program.
As a
Um,
result of the program, we've had one person that has gone through that is currently an employee with the Asheville Police Department getting ready to go through the basic law enforcement academy.
Very cool. I wonder if in the past maybe there have been some as well. But talk about then too. So you go through the police academy, and that's just one of the things you're involved in, but a major thing you're involved in. You also have programs with teens, I understand, right? Your separate teen program?
Do It's called the Junior Police Academy for ages 14 through 18,
Yeah.
and um, that's a program that we initiated last year. We had about 14 young persons that attended that. It has grown. This year we had, I think, 27.
Wow.
And next year we're planning on running 2 weeks of the Junior Police Academy.
And so when does that run? In the summers?
It does. Runs in the summers. We've done it we've conducted that in June. So we'll probably have to do a week in June and a week in July next year.
And so what that's kind of a mini version of what the regular police academy is?
It's a little bit different. It's the formatting is somewhat the same. There are similarities, but it's obviously geared towards young people. So things that would keep their interest and keep them engaged, maybe a little bit different than on the adult level. But we focus on leadership and team building, exposure to law enforcement, education, and then we'll sprinkle some, a half day trip to Camp Cedar Cliff and do high ropes courses and things of that nature. So it's a little bit of outdoor activities plus the programming we offer inside the police department.
I would imagine also in terms of helping change kids' attitudes or young adults' attitude, whatever you want to call them, it really helps. In other words, I would imagine that they're going through the program, they're going to have a different attitude toward police than they did previously. Would you say that's true?
I think it is. I think anytime that you can form relationships with people, um, I think you add that human element to it. It certainly changes people's impressions and perceptions.
How about the issue of in terms of recruiting, not only for these classes we've talked about, but officers? And you said that it's still a little bit down, right? That Asheville Police Department is what you say 75% full capacity, or is that about it?
Close. We're about 30% off from full capacity, so we're running 70%. Um, our recruitment efforts have gotten much more robust over the last year. We were hiring in groups of 5 and 6 the last few years. Our last class that we just graduated was 15.
Oh, really great.
Ready to start next week is 21. So we're seeing some success on the recruiting side of it.
And so to be a police officer, you have to go through all sorts of stuff. Um, how long does it take to become a police officer? Or even in your case, so you went to college not as a police critical justice major, you went as some other major, and you worked in the field for a couple of years, not in criminal justice, but then you decided, how old were you when you decided to become an officer?
25.
And how long did it take you then to go through that process? And what does the process entail?
It takes about 6 months to go through the academy from start to finish. Once you get out of the academy, you're going to do some additional training for about 6 weeks. Then you'll go into about a 4 month phase of field training where you'll be paired with a field training officer. There's 4 phases of that. So we'll take you from phase one, which is the beginning phase, learning how to drive a police car, learning how to talk on the radio, learning how to respond to calls, to phase four, which the officer is in the shadows and you're really answering the calls and handling all of the work. And that officer is simply monitoring your responses.
Because one of the things that changed since I was in Nashville, and I think it's unfortunate in some respects, but when I first moved here, all officers were in two to a car, right? There were always two to a car. Now that's no longer the case.
Yeah, that's we don't do two person cars. We run single cars, and that's really for efficiency.
Sure.
Not every call for service requires two people. So it really gives us the opportunity to have more coverage throughout the city when we run single cars and more efficiency with our response times.
And like I said, I can see it because you're getting twice as many cars out there with just one person. But in some respects, it makes it even more challenging for the officer. He or she is by themselves. What about also, and this is off TV, but I'd like you to respond to it, that now do all officers wear body cams?
They do, yes.
Yeah. And they're operating 24/7 or every time they're on duty?
Well, there. So yes, all the officers wear body cameras in addition to fleet cameras, which are in the patrol cars. The body cameras are always what we call buffering, which means they're always on, but they're not necessarily recording. Activation is required under certain policy directives. So if we're on a call for service, they have to be activated. If we're dealing with a member of the public, they have to be activated. But if you're eating dinner or you're just control, they do not have to be activated.
As an officer, what's your reaction to that?
There was resistance to that
A
early
lot.
on. There was a lot of, I think, fear from officers not knowing what that was going to look and feel like. But as it has become industry standard across the nation, most every progressive police force is now wearing body cameras, and it's expected by the community. It's really a non-issue, and I think officers have also grown to appreciate the documentation that body cameras provide. In that, number one, it provides an accurate account of what happened on that scene. And many times it absolves officers of frivolous complaints or um, where a member of the public may be alleging something that's untrue. There's documentation that we can go to that and we can review the camera and get a factual understanding of what happened. From an investigative standpoint, they've been very, very helpful in terms of their documentation and us being able to go back and review the tape and capture images of maybe a license plate or a vehicle description or a person that we've interacted with.
I love what you just said there. There was a sportscaster. You may not be familiar with him, but by the name of Warner Wolf, he was a famous sportscaster. He said word for word what you would say. He said, "Let's go to the tape." You know, they were
Yes,
looking at a sporting event. I imagine also it improves in some respects communication with the public because if you're on tape or you're being taped, you're going to be in some respects more respectful or polite, or you have to learn how to be in terms of dealing with the public. And I guess that's part of when you went through the training, and even now it's part of the whole process to learn how to deal with the public.
you do. And body cameras offer a completely different dimension in terms of how it modifies human behavior.
Right.
And it modifies the public's behavior most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it does. And I would say it does the same for the officer. Now we wear the body cameras all the time, so it becomes just another part of our uniform and our equipment. But we're also aware that you don't want to be caught in an unprofessional moment. So you're always situationally aware that you are on camera. And, I don't know of a human being that would want to be caught on camera in a situation that doesn't represent them or the agency well. So I think that's had um, a real effect on how we operate day to day in the profession.
It sounds that just in listening to you, and I was telling you off the air that as a teacher, and even now currently, a lot of teachers don't like the idea of being viewed. But isn't that ironic, Jonathan? We talk about, police should be viewed all the time and be taped. Shouldn't all professionals, when you think about it? If they're dealing with the public, why should you have anything to hide when you think about it? If, if you're being taped, I don't think there's much to hide, which is kind of,
Yeah, especially professions where public trust is
right.
such an integral part of what we do. See, we couldn't do our job without public trust. If the public loses trust in us, we are ineffective. So we have to maintain that trust with the folks that we're serving. And, I think it's become expected in this day and age that police officers, they wear cameras. And, it used to be even when I started, although I don't feel, old enough to say, back in my day, but I would go on the stand in a trial in court and I would raise my right hand and put my hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth. And my testimony was the evidence that we relied on
Right.
in many cases. Now it's your testimony, yes, but it's also the video. And they want to see the video.
Okay, interesting. With respect to the program you run, the community engagement program, so we talked about the academies, we talked about some other things to do. Anything else that's part of your like kind of daily or weekly routine?
I also have the school resource officers. We have 8 member schools within the city school or city school system. I have 5 school resource officers, and that's part of the community engagement division. So they serve the 8 member schools, and they do a fabulous job. We've got 5 really good school resource officers that are dedicated and really enjoy their job and look at themselves as mentors to young people. So, yeah, it's just one more area of the community engagement division that we're proud to have them on board.
Now, are these police officers?
They are. They
Oh,
are. They're
okay. So,
officers.
so they have they're weaponized when they go into the schools?
Yes.
And maybe kind of a last question, but just like you said, I remember the police academy. I'd always have another question, or just you speaking, I have another question here. Your feeling about schools, personally, I wasn't big on it, but I do teachers. Do you think teachers should have guns?
Um, I'm me
You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Yeah,
my personal opinion. I think if the vetting process
right.
were such that you had identified folks, just like the air marshals
Good
uh,
point.
carry on airplanes, I would not have a problem with that. I've got four kids that all went through the public school system, and I was very grateful to the school resource officers that served the school that my kids were at. And there were times I worried, I hope nothing happens today at my kid's school. And I think parents, in the back of their mind, everyone has that small, low grade fear that, something could happen. Um, wouldn't it be something that if somebody tried to assault in a school or attack a school, there was a teacher there that could act as a first responder and eliminate that threat? I think that would
Good
be
point.
a good thing, but I also understand it's a very charged conversation and many opinions on both sides, and I respect that.
And by the way, thank you for answering that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate your answer on that. And again, what it points out too, and I think again, some of the work you do helps with this as well. There are usually, I say, like two stories, if not a lot more, two sides to every story, if not a lot more, So
Yes,
you can have just a belief, but as you said, I had one child in school, you had four children in school. It changes your viewpoint. And I guess also what's happened in society has changed my viewpoint, because again, 20 years ago, who would have thunk when you started that there'd be issues like this in schools? And it's just and what is it? And I'm again putting you on the spot, but I think I've seen places, right, where they have teachers who are armed or they have the engagement officers. There are less serious crimes than when they don't have them. Is that a true statement, or have you seen that? Well, I think I've seen that somewhere.
yeah.
So I guess it's doing some good. To wrap up, a couple of things. So we talked about the academy. If people are interested in it, strongly recommended. What's the way to get information on the Citizens Academy?
They can do a quick Google search of the Asheville Police Department Citizens Police Academy, and it'll pop up. It'll be one of your first options there. If they'll just click on that, it'll take you to the link where the application is. And if they'll just click the application link, fill it out, and send it'll land in my inbox.
And on the teenagers program, how do people sign up for that one?
We will make that link available. It's not on our website,
Okay.
but we will make that link available sometime in early spring of 2026, whenever we're ready to open up the applications. And yeah, we're really looking forward. We're hoping that that program is going to continue to grow like it has over the last year, and we're wanting to expand that into two offerings over two different sessions.
Okay. And lastly, if folks in general just want to find out about the Asheville Police Department, the website is what?
AshevilleNC.gov is the website. That's the City of Asheville website. And once you get onto that website, one of the tabs is for departments. And if they'll just go and find the police department, it will access our website.
Okay, so certainly information is available, and what you're saying now, it's out there for people to check into. Including one other thing you mentioned, great idea if somebody wants to check it out. You want to see being a police officer all is about. Do that ride, do a ride along, and your eyes will open up, I think. So,
That's a great experience. I would encourage people to take advantage of that.
well, thank you for sharing that. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Captain Jonathan Brown, for being my guest at this edition of Blaine's World webcast. Also, my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And hopefully we'll bump into each other one of these days. That'd be great, man. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you.